Manchester United have been behind modern Premier League clubs for over a decade now, both on and off the pitch. INEOS have made sweeping changes. Not all of them have been good, especially around the matchday experience, but a lot of good has been done on modernising key aspects of the club. Now, I want to focus on data in this video and explain exactly how we're starting to see the work paying off across performance, recruitment, and training. This has been years in the making, but it is most certainly better late than never. Now, data. It's crucial in the modern game. Manchester United, we've been left behind for a long time. I'm going to run through kind of all the changes that have happened because this has been happening for a while, but I've never actually done like an isolated standalone video. And honestly, I've kind of been waiting years for this. I don't think that title is an over-exaggeration. And we run through everything and how we can see it in recruitment, performance, and a few other things. Let's run through it. Now, you'll remember this interview with Andy Mitten and Jim Ratcliffe back towards the tail end of 2024, I think. Jim Ratcliffe, it was an honest interview. And part of it, he was speaking about data. And his words, not mine. We must have the best recruitment in the world. Data analysis comes alongside recruitment. It doesn't really exist here. We're still in the last century on data analysis. Probably a little bit OTT on the old last century thing. But United's data has long been behind other clubs in the Premier League. Of course, Tony Bloom at Brighton and their use of Star Lizard, which is the data company that Tony Bloom himself set up. From a gambling perspective, I think it was to try and make gambling more predictable. Is that that's the wrong way to describe it, really. But I suppose to give yourself as much of an advantage when you're doing it as you possibly can. And he's applied that to Brighton. And Brighton use their data. And it's been a big help in terms of recruitment, for sure. But also in how Brighton is operating as a club. Now, in terms of United, back in 2021, Dominic Jordan was brought in as our Director of Data Science, and the first one. And effectively what Dominic Jordan did was establish the department, right? We didn't really have one until Dominic Jordan came in. And then this summer, Michael Sansoni came in. And this is kind of off the back of an article that Simon Stone wrote in the BBC. It's something I felt for a while, but it feels like a good time to talk about it in the international break. Right, Sansoni was brought in. You can see down here what his job spec was. Be responsible for transforming the club's capabilities in data and AI. And he's tasked with establishing United as a data-led organisation, embedding predictive and AI-driven decision-making across football and the wider club. And if you look at Manchester United's actual data setup, it's actually bigger than you think. In terms of who Dominic Jordan brought in, Head of Data Operations, Chris Shumba, Machine Learning Scientist, Andrew Davis, Decision Scientist, another Data Scientist, Senior Data Scientist, Football Strategy and Reporting Analysts. And on top of that, United are currently trying to bring in a Football Data Operations Manager, a Junior Data Analyst. Kind of the point I'm trying to make here. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes when it comes to data than we know about, or we'll ever really get visibility about. Because the same way that Star Lizard is used by Brighton and it's a very closely guarded secret, data is quite closely guarded. So we're not really going to ever get too much proper insight into it. However, what we're starting to see and what we can talk about now is the results and the evidence of it that we can understand and interpret as fans. Again, this is from the BBC here, talking about how Sansoni has revamped United's data capabilities. And I'm going to focus on those three departments: performance, recruitment, and training. Because from a recruitment perspective, I think that's going to be the easiest thing for us all to understand. I think even if you look last summer, before Michael Sansoni came in, I thought United's recruitment was good. Was it better this summer? Yeah. But was it good last summer? I think it was. Euro was a hit. Ugarte was a miss. De Ligt was a hit. Xerxes, I don't think will go down as a miss because I think we'll probably recoup most of what we paid for him. But I think it's just unfortunate for him that the goalpost slightly shifted since when we signed him and what we need. And then we signed Šeško, Cunha, and Abumo ahead of him. And Mazraoui, a definite hit. As for this summer, I don't think anybody's going to be arguing about whether or not it was a success in terms of the signings we made. Was it a failure in the signings we didn't make? Yes, we should have signed a midfielder. I don't really think data would have been used too much in Cunha and Abumo, top-level Premier League players. That's more of a strategy shift than a use of data. But Senny Lamons, for sure, was a use of data. Now, Tony Cotton, our goalkeeping head scout, had actually been looking at him for a long time, probably even before Michael Sansoni came in. So again, this is not just down to Sansoni, but it's just a bit of a shift. And United, I think when it comes to Šeško, we went for Šeško because Chris Ravel really had more than data. He had worked with him for years, so he had hands-on experience. But I think past that is when you can speak about the younger signings. And I think this is where we're really going to see it. Diego Leon, he's going to take time. Christian Orozco is one I'm interested in. Because everybody can say the sort of data's boring and it's like, I don't really care about it. Until United unearth a gem, maybe Christian Orozco, maybe someone else like him, unearth a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, is wow, he is way beyond his years. And we find that because we're using the data, because we're able to shortlist these players. I think unearthing gems is where this data is really going to come into its own. From a performance perspective, I think we've already seen some improvements. Sam Merrith came in as a new head of performance, I think in the summer. I don't know whether it was in the summer or not, or slightly before. But data is involved in that. If you look at how United were last season versus this season, unequivocally, our fitness levels are significantly better. Every single player went off into the summer with a tailored fitness plan. Follow this before we come to pre-season. I think the players did, because we definitely look fitter. Now, on top of that, the lack of injuries, only playing once a week, that's definitely helping Manchester United, all right? No doubt. But the baseline fitness has been so much better. Now, it's going to be down to Ruben Amorim and his coaching. But on top of that, Sam Merrith and the performance team, and probably how they're using data to understand exactly how much load to put players under, etc., etc. And then on top of that, you've got a new Carrington. So the facilities and the training can be improved. When to train, when not to train, how hard to train, what to train. These are the sorts of things that we'll never really properly have access to as fans, nor should we really. This is the data that the club holds in the same way, as I said, that Brighton held Star Lizard and all their data so close to them, and nobody else actually used their data. It was just in-house. Now, Sansoni being brought in from Mercedes, from F1, I've already spoken about this on the live show. I think it's a sport where data is prevalent. More than most sports, I think. The small changes, the margins, the 100th of a second that you can gain by tweaking this and tweaking that because of what the data is telling you, is something that has to be applied at United. And we have been years and years and years behind this. Now, I don't think that we've seen huge amounts of progress, but I think we've seen progress. And people don't like that word because of how we are on the pitch. But off the pitch, behind the scenes, Man United are modernising as a football club. So much bloody... I don't need to run through all the changes that we've done from a senior leadership perspective. But the changes that have happened, and as I said, the most visual examples that we're going to get is going to be within recruitment. So keep an eye on some of the younger players that we're still looking at. We linked with a 16-year-old from Hertha Berlin. Of course, we're going to be having scouts. I know that's the eye test is part of recruitment still, but it's not everything in modern recruitment. And I'm interested in this side of things. And when we find that gem, it's going to make a difference. And I'll tell you what, when we do, and if we do, data would have played a big role in it, let alone everything else to do with performance and training.